Zitto!
Hi everybody, this is Giulia, but you can call me God. And I'm here with Aziraphale.
Hello!
And Crowley.
Hey!
This first reading session contains some extracts from my fanfic, The Odd and Bizarre Adventures of Aziraphale, Angel, and Crowley, Demon. If you like it, be sure to check it out along the e-sign. Enough with the talking now, and let's get a wiggle on to the actual reading.
Wiggle on.
Chapter 3. Rearrangement and what comes out of it. Crowley. Crowley despised the 14th century. Blood and corruption were on a lot of people's daily schedule back then. He must admit that he may have started some of it. He convinced the Pope to organize a very expensive jubilee. He persuaded the people of Bruges to get rid of the French in their city. But he didn't think that they would be so adept at killing every single one of them. He also invented cures. Then, nature decided to take its vengeance on humans. First, leprosy, then heavy rain and floods. The only good thing about that century was the completion of the Tower of Pisa. Crowley had deliberately chosen an unsuitable spot, and was absurdly proud to see that, despite any human attempt to prevent it, the tower was dangerously leaning to one side. He also lost a friend. He usually didn't mingle with humans, but that time it was inevitable, really. He hadn't met Aziraphale for a long time. Hell praised him for horrible things he hadn't committed, but sounded very demonic, and he felt miserable. So he travelled to Italy, Florence, a city renowned for arts and politics. And there he met a poet with a crooked nose. He was supposed to tempt him, and he did, arousing the already married man's desire for another woman. But the poet didn't drown in his desire, as usually humans do, and as Crowley expected. On the contrary, he used it to write astonishing romantic poems.
Tanto gentile e tanto onesta pare la donna mia, quand'ella altrui saluta.
As a result, Crowley got curious and decided to speak to him again. They became friends and went out drinking together. Once, while drunk, he told him about hell, hatred in every word. The mortal took a work of art out of his angry drunken speech, and, despite everything, Crowley was deeply touched by his brilliant, cruel rhymes. Then the candle of the mortal's life went out, and the demon was alone again, alone and full of sorrow. He ran into Aziraphale a couple of days before the burial in Ravenna.
Crowley?
He heard his unmistakable voice behind him.
Che gne lingua deven tremando muta e gli occhi non ardiscon di guardare. Angel, what a surprise!
He greeted while turning, trying to sound a bit pleasant and to avoid the angel's gaze. But as soon as he faced Aziraphale, he was, as always, struck by the intensity of his aura, so warm and welcoming, he almost forgot his grief. Almost. The angel smiled, at first reluctantly, then openly.
I was just wondering where you had slithered to, my demon.
Now he sounded indecisive. The angel was clearly a bit distressed, but before he could go on about slithering, Crowley talked again.
Yeah, I've slithered here and there. You know, quite slow as a means of transport.
He added a bit bitterly. He knew the angel had good intentions, but sometimes he really seemed incapable of letting go of his celestial judgment about him. Aziraphale must have sensed his mood, because he replied more sweetly.
I'm sorry, Crowley. How rude of me. Never mind. How have you been?
Alright. Quite.
Aziraphale didn't bite and asked, concern in his voice.
Is there something I can do for you?
E par che sia una cosa venuta da cielo in terra, a miracol mostrare.
And in that moment, Crowley had an idea. It was foolish, and it could have put both of them into trouble. But he wanted to be at the barrier so badly, even if he couldn't understand why.
Actually, yes. But you won't like it.
And he explained his request. Aziraphale should have gone to Rome for a quick temptation because Crowley himself was busy otherwise, and then Crowley would owe the angel one.
This is preposterous.
Just think about it. Our head offices want the job done. They don't care how. We'll keep balancing each other, good and evil, and they won't suspect a thing.
Crowley, we shouldn't even be whatever we are. You can't ask me to accomplish evil deeds.
But I will do something good in return. Please, Angel, just please.
Aziraphale looked at him, quite shocked, and then he agreed weakly.
Just this time.
Crowley couldn't help but hug the angel.
E pare che delle sue labbra si muova uno spirito soave, pien d'amore.
Squeezing him hard and letting out a shaking breath. After a couple of seconds, Aziraphale hugged him back.
Che va dicendo all'anima, sospira.
Crowley. Crowley had reserved one of the theatre's balconies. Well, not exactly reserved, but the final result was the same as reserving. No one else would use the balcony that night. He was waiting for Aziraphale, tapping his fingers on the wooden rail. The angel had just come back from Edinburgh that morning, and Crowley thought there was no better way to welcome him back than inviting him to one of Shakespeare's plays. Actually, he did that because he felt slightly guilty about having cheated when he had tossed the coin for who would be going to Edinburgh. Just slightly. The angel hadn't noticed, anyway, so it wasn't Crowley's fault if Aziraphale trusted a demon. He smelled his essence first.
There is no other way to call it, and you humans would understand anyway.
Lotus and spring breeze, with a little touch of some human perfume.
Lavender, maybe?
Then he heard his steps on the wooden stairs to the balcony, and later his voice, as he appeared on the threshold and said,
"Oh, a privé! How wonderful!"
Don't start with compliments. I made a noble prick someone fall ill to have this spot. Nothing serious,
he added, because Aziraphale had made a shocked face and had opened his mouth to surely reprehend him. The angel sighed, but then smiled.
"Well, I suppose they deserved it, and this spot is too nice to complain about."
Whatever, Angel.
So, Hamlet?
The masterpiece of the century,
the demon declared, in a mockery of a sophisticated tone.
Hamlet's story will survive eternally because it's actually about mankind, not just an indecisive boy.
Wonderful. You have outdone yourself this time. And this is?
A new one. Romeo and Juliet. Love and drama.
In that moment, the first actors entered the scene, so the two of them went silent. The theatre was crowded, but the other people were unusually silent too. The first act was quite boring in Crowley's opinion, but then...
"Oh, speak again, bright angel, for thou art as glorious to this night, being o'er my head as in a winged messenger of heaven unto the white, upturned, wondering eyes of mortals that fall back to gaze on him, when he bestrides the lazy pacing clouds and floats upon the bosom of the air."
He shouldn't have spoken with Shakespeare while drunk. He shouldn't have spoken with Shakespeare at all. That man was a thief of lines. Well, he hadn't said exactly that, but he bestrides the lazy pacing clouds.
"'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. What's Montague? Is nor end nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name.
He risked a glance at Aziraphale. The angel was completely absorbed by the play. If he concentrated, he could see his white wings lightly quivering in another dimension. The play went on.
The two young lads are pretty stupid,
Was all Crowley could think, though, when Juliet, towards the end, stabbed herself with Romeo's dagger, he almost yelped. A glooming peace this morning with it brings. The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned, and some punished. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. As soon as the play ended, all the people stood up and frantically applauded. Crowley turned to Aziraphale, ready to make a sarcastic comment, but then saw that the angel was crying.
You didn't like it?
The demon asked, as casually as possible, and trying not to sound concerned. Aziraphale sighed and wiped away his tears.
On the contrary, my friend, I loved it. Sometimes human emotions are so strong and I don't know how to explain. My heart is filled with them, and it's wonderful and heartbreaking at the same time. I'm not sure you can understand that, being a demon.
Crowley shrugged.
Next time, a happy one. Deal?
Deal,
was the whispered answer. Chapter 4. Raphael. Aziraphale. In the flow of centuries, Aziraphale had come across multiple times with the character of Raphael. Raphael was an archangel who loved humanity, and who manifested quite regularly on Earth to perform some miracles. He was frequently represented in human art, mostly red-headed, sometimes with black wings, sometimes with white ones, and he always had a remarkable physique. Therefore, there were many things that made him quite puzzled. Actually, tremendously puzzled. But here there are the main two. First of all, some of the miracles this Raphael was praised for were actually Aziraphale's. Second, there was no angel of any kind in any corner of heaven named Raphael. Eventually, he elaborated a theory. Usually, Aziraphale didn't show himself to humans. If he did, he almost blinded them with a heavenly light, so that they could only see his wings. He wanted some anonymity to be free to roam the miracle place afterwards. You wouldn't want every single villager stalking you around and begging for a favor. Sometimes he also told them his name, and he supposed that Aziraphale might be a little bit tricky on human tongues. And so they just turned it into Raphael. But why the black wings? And what about the other miracles that weren't his? Eventually, he got an answer. Aziraphale was enjoying a private party at an aristocrat's house in Paris, somewhere during the 17th century. The noble was showing to his guests his art gallery, which was full of remarkable paintings and frescoes. Then, a flash of black wings and red hair captured the angel's attention, and there it was, Archange Raphael et Tobia par le Titian, replica. The angel was guiding a boy, Tobias, he supposed, through a garden. Aziraphale was staring at the picture in awe when a hand came to rest on his shoulder. Startled, he turned, finding a smugly grinning Crowley.
Hey there, Angel! Fancy meeting you here!
Oh dear, you scared me. Crowley!
The demon smirked, probably aware of it.
So, what do we have here?
He started again, but then he trailed off, staring at the painting, his slitted eyes wide behind his glasses. Aziraphale finally recovered from the surprise, and academically explained.
This is a replica of a painting in Venice, if I'm corrected. It represents the Archangel Raphael protecting and guiding the boy Tobias. The thing is, there is no angel Raphael. Isn't it quite curious, is it?
Crowley remained silent for a while, then cleared his throat.
Yeah, there's something I probably ought to tell you, Angel.
I mean, there can be a Raphael, or I totally would know him. Wait, what is it? What have you done?
I invented Raphael.
Oh, goodness! You? But why? And how? And
Crowley let out a long breath, running a hand through his hair.
Well, long story short, I did some not exactly evil deeds and found myself in need of an angelic facade to, be safe and whatever, and so I came up with Raphael, which could actually be also you, and then we had the arrangement, and now it is even more handy than before when I go perform your miracles.
Aziraphale was staring at the demon, quite baffled.
so, let me understand. This Raphael is just a made-up angel to cover your act of kindness.
Crowley's eyes dilated.
I'm not kind, Angel.
He hissed, grabbing Aziraphale by his shoulders.
I just wanted to. I mean, there was the kid, and it was intentional, really. Ugh.
The angel beamed at him, patting one hand on his.
Don't worry, all-wily servant. Now, should I make a demon nap? So, to cover my moments of mischief.
Crowley rolled his eyes and let go of him.
You already have me, don't you?
I suppose I do.
Crowley.
I'm not kind. I'm a bloody demon, for hell's sake.
Crowley was muttering to himself while walking back home after the party.
That kid was lost. Was I supposed to leave him there, all alone?
He probably should have, but he hadn't. He had found Tobias wandering in the desert, lost, and had decided to accompany him to his destination, the city of Ecbatana. While he was there, to be true to his demonic nature, he had tempted him to marry a widow.
It doesn't count that they lived happily together ever after.
And then found himself obliged to make sure they returned safely back home. He might have also healed Tobias' father's blindness, and then might have tried to give the credit to a magic fish, but to no avail. Eventually, more precisely when he had run out of options, he had shown them briefly his wings, and told them he was the Archangel Raphael. At first he had thought to use Aziraphale's name, but maybe, knowing some of the awful people from upstairs...
Effing Sandaphone.
He decided for something a little bit more discreet.
Azrael. Aziraphale? Fail something? Oh, Raphael.
Yes, Raphael. Simple, effective, and very angelic. And so the myth of Archangel Raphael was born, and somehow the humans had started to use it both for Crowley and Aziraphale. The demon was pleased by this result, but also felt scorned, even if he wasn't sure why. He had successfully covered some of his not exactly evil actions, both from hell and heaven. Which reaction would be worse? But he had expected a different response from Aziraphale when he would have found out. Which response he didn't actually know, so he felt scorned. A lot. Extract from Chapter 6. Not very angelic, not very demonic. Aziraphale. Aziraphale felt very bad for that day at the bookshop, so the very next day he sent an apologetic letter to Crowley.
My dear Crowley, I'm so very sorry about last Saturday. I am truly glad that I didn't have to leave, and the credit for my uninterrupted presence here is all yours. I hope you can forgive me over a dinner in your favorite restaurant. Please send word if you accept my apology. If you don't, I will understand. Yours sincerely, Aziraphale.
The angel spent the next few days in a lunatic and quite nervous mood in his bookshop. Clients passed by, but he always found a reason to shoo them away.
Apparently, you're supposed to sell books in a bookshop.
Every time the door opened, he whirled, expecting it to be Crowley, but it wasn't. He was almost resigned to never see him again when the demon showed up at his back door with a nonchalant,
"Hey, Angel, what's up?"
Aziraphale stared at him, marveled by his good-looking attire. He was wearing an elegant black suit, on a crimson shirt and a grey tie.
"Angel!"
Crowley repeated, snapping his fingers in front of his face.
Ah, yes. Fine suit. I'm nice. Goodness, I'm fine.
"Yeah, sure. Suitors are fine."
The demon smirked, rather sarcastically.
"So, you ready to go out?"
Now the angel was confused.
Where?
"You're a bloody leather angel! Did or didn't you invite me out?"
Ah, yes, but I was waiting. It's fine, but I'm not ready. Actually, I'm not ready at all. I wasn't...
Crowley interrupted him again.
"Not a problem, Angel. Here you are."
He snapped his fingers again, and Aziraphale found himself dressed with the cream and teal suit he had bought while thinking about this very occasion.
Oh, thank you.
Crowley made one of his funny faces, the one with pursed lips, which meant,
"Not a problem, Angel."
or at least this was Aziraphale's interpretation. If you ask Crowley, he would probably think,
"Your wish is my command."
but would say,
"Yeah, whatever."
Just let me close the bookshop and we can go.
"Already taken care of,"
said Crowley, grabbing his arm and linking their elbows. They went to it to the rules. After some minutes of embarrassed silence, to be more precise, Aziraphale's silence was embarrassed, Crowley's was companionable, they returned to the usual banter. Aziraphale would talk about anything, and Crowley would say something, usually involving the least number of syllables possible, now and then. Paid the bill, they went out and walked through the city. They were almost back at the bookshop when a steady music came out of a nearby building. Aziraphale stopped abruptly and listened more carefully. After a couple of seconds, he exclaimed,
"Oh, Gavotte."
He loved Gavotte, and, to be honest, he was also pretty good at it. But he was sure Crowley didn't like it. So he started working again, but the demon didn't move.
"We could go and have a look,"
he suggested instead.
Are you sure?
Aziraphale asked doubtfully.
"Yes, why not?"
That's very nice of you, my dear.
The angel smiled, heading towards the music.
"I'm not nice,"
uttered Crowley, dramatically rolling his eyes. The building happened to host a small dancing club, and that day it was Gavotte night. At first, the two of them only watched the people dancing, standing by a small buffet table. But after a while, and a few pastries, Aziraphale couldn't stand still anymore.
Do you mind if
he asked Crowley a bit hesitantly.
"You don't need my permission, Angel. Go on." "Shoo,"
he added at the uncertain look Aziraphale gave him.
Tip-top?
The angel cried out with a big smile before throwing himself into the gavotte. Aziraphale danced, drank some more wine, and made sure Crowley did too, and danced again. At the end, he was bursting with so much glee that he grabbed the demon's hands and tried to lead him in the gavotte. If you had asked the opinion of some of the other participants, they would have said that the duo was very awkward. Crowley's concept of dancing was more like freely sliding on the floor, rather than following precise steps. But Aziraphale had fun anyway, and couldn't help but laugh. When the music stopped, the angel kissed the demon briefly on his lips, then skidded away, giggling, cheeks reddened. Crowley slowly brought up his hand, touching his lips with his fingers, a strange look on his face.
"What was that?"
he whispered.
Wouldn't want to end the gavotte without kissing, would you? It's tradition.
Aziraphale laughed. He linked elbows with the demon and pushed him outside.
Come on, it's late. We better go home now.
Crowley followed him silently, letting the angel tug him along. He hadn't failed to notice that no other dancer had kissed.
Tradition? Yeah. No kidding with tradition.
Just for you to know, that particular tradition had existed, but had eventually died out a couple of centuries before. Extract from Chapter 10. The Bentley knows better. The Bentley. Being a car was a very good thing. She was cherished, first of all. Then, being a demon's car, even if she was not so young anymore, she always got all the newest and best technologies. She also could choose which music to play, and she got to fly on the streets. Not really fly, but the sensation was close enough. She was very fond of her master, and he was very fond of her. They listened to each other. By now, she knew very well her master's obsession for alcohol, hairstyle, fashion, drama, and the fluffy white man, and herself, of course. They also enjoyed teasing one another. He would tell her she was an old lady now, and that she needed to be careful when crossing the road. In return, she would blast After Forever by Black Sabbath, or a song from Sound of Music if she was really pissed. All of this, of course, before 1973, since Queen, if it was up to her, she would play only their songs. Sadly, Queen didn't exist yet, that night in 1967, she would have known just the right music for their situation. A memorable night in which they both got pissed. Of course, drama and the fluffy white man were involved. But let's start from the beginning. The morning of that day in 1967, first of all, her master got a haircut. He went to the most up-with-the-time barber in London and got the most fashionable haircut of the moment, but he wasn't satisfied. So, that's already a point up the foul mood scale. Then, he went in a shop to buy new sunglasses. He stayed inside more than an hour, and then came out empty-handed. Another 2 points. That afternoon, he went to meet someone in a pub. He had explained her that he wanted to steal something from a church, 5 points. And that he needed to assemble a team, 3 points. He hated group working. She waited patiently outside, parked in a no parking area. She was still waiting, playing some classical music, don't tell Crowley, when a hand came to rest on the passenger's door handle.
Hello, do you mind if I come in?
It was the fluffy white man, dressed impeccably as always. A bit out of fashion right now, but wasn't that cute? She opened and let him in. She liked him. He was always so gentle. And maybe, if she locked the two of them inside, they would finally talk about the elephant in the room. Should she say in the car? She wasn't dumb. She had noticed. But apparently they were. So she waited with him for her master to return, catching her breath. She saw him greeting someone, and then he entered, took a seat, and finally looked at the fluffy white man. The angel, apparently, didn't want Crowley to steal anything, so he had brought a thermos. Holy shit, she thought. Well, holy water, she corrected herself with an inner chuckle, as the fluffy white man gave it reverently to Crowley. Reverently and full of concern, as also she was. Holy water, if you heard her master talking, was very dangerous. She snapped back to their conversation as Crowley asked,
Should I thank you?
That won't be necessary, no.
The angel answered with a weak and not very convincing smile.
I'll give you a lift then. Anywhere you want.
Oh, that was a lot of emotion. She could feel it in her master's voice. She caught her breath again while waiting for the fluffy white man's response.
You go too fast for me, Crowley.
Ouch! What the fuck? What does it even mean? But before she could blast some appropriate song about love and denial, the angel left. So, for today, that was it, dear Madam, Sir, or Neuter. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you at the next reading session tomorrow at 12 BST. Thank you, and have a nice day. But, before leaving, bloopers!
The kid was lost. Was I supposed to... No, rifacciamola.
The very next day, he sent an apologetic letter to Crowley.
My dear Crowley, I'm so very sorry about last Saturday. I'm truly glad that I didn't have to leave and the credit...
No, l'unica cosa dove la voce era più alta, le parole erano scandite lo stesso, sono mangiate. I just want... I'm not kind, Angel. I just want to...
Oops. Chapter 4. Raphael. Aziraphale. In the flows. A glooming peace this morning with it brings. The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned, and some punished. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Scusate, qua però non sono riuscita a trattenere.